Hey Ariana, it's Julia, the ex-English major, and today it is a Friday afternoon as of recording this. Work is done, comfy clothes are on. We are dressed for the weather that we wish we had because it's probably in the low 60s right now in Arizona. So we're pretending it's colder. And since January is almost over, I am going to be doing a wrap up of all the books that I read during the month of January. Just as a reminder for my wrap up, I will not be getting into any sort of wrap ups of any fan fiction or anything that I've read during the month of January, but I read a lot of series. So you are going to be seeing quite a few groups of books clunked together. I will not give you any sort of spoilers for them, so I will be only summarizing the first one of the series in case this is something that you are interested in checking out. So the first series that I picked up in the month of January is the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. These books are extremely readable. So I give this series 4 Londons out of 4. This book series takes place in a universe where the universes are kind of parallel to each other. So we have 4 different Londons, and we have these people who have the ability to cross over from one London into the other. So each of the worlds is different. So it's not like there are parallel universes for every single city. We only have these parallel universes for London. Let me go ahead and give you a summary from the back of the book of just the first one here. Kel is one of the last Antari, magicians with a rare, coveted ability to travel between parallel Londons: red, gray, white, and once upon a time, black. Kel was raised in Arnis, Red London, and officially serves the Marish Empire as an ambassador, traveling between the frequent bloody regime changes in White London and the court of George III in the dullest of the Londons, the one without any magic left to see. Unofficially, Kel is a smuggler, servicing people willing to pay for even the smallest glimpses of the world they'll never see. It's a defiant hobby with dangerous consequences, which Kel is now seeing firsthand. After an exchange goes awry, Kel escapes to Grey London and runs into Delilah Bard, a cut purse with lofty aspirations. She first robs him and then saves him from a deadly enemy, and finally forces Kel to spirit her to another world for a proper adventure. Now perilous magic is afoot, and treachery lurks at every turn. To save all of these worlds, they'll first need to stay alive. So in this series, we are kind of dancing back and forth between each of the Londons. We're following Kel in the first book, and he has some consequences of his frequent traveling between each of the Londons, and he has broken the golden rule, which is you cannot bring something from one London into another. There's a reason that they're kept separate. Absolutely under no circumstances are you supposed to bring something tangible, physical from one London to another. And some of these Londons have magic and some of them do not. So in this story, we are following the consequences of Kel having brought some items from one London to another, and he runs into Delilah. She is from a London where there is no magic, and we are following the adventures of Kel and Delilah and those that they meet as they are trying to settle things the way that they should be. I don't want to get into too many spoilers, so that's just all I'll say about that. Really good. One thing that I will mention about this book series is it is compulsively readable. So each of these chapters in this are 3 to 5 pages max, and then each of the sections is about 50 to 100 pages each. So because of that, you are just getting these really bite-sized chunks. All 3 of them have this. So this is a great book series if you want something that's quick, reading chapters just between errands, or you slip into it and realize that time has passed and you've no idea. Very readable, very easy to get lost in. It's very easy to read too. This is borderline YA. Some of these characters are pretty young. They're in their young 20s. It's really easy to read. It's really quick to read. The world building, V.E. Schwab does a great job of giving you little pieces of what you would need and not going too far beyond that. Sometimes I think that books kind of give you too much, especially when it's so different from our own, but sometimes it can be kind of information overload or things that you don't need. And V.E. Schwab does a really, really good job of giving you what you need the time that you need it. And so that way you can just be propelled through the story very quick pace. One thing I will mention is that our Delilah character, she is very much a 2010s not like other girls character. She hates dresses. She always wants to be in pants. She's always not talking bad about other women, but it is very much, it feels like one of your stereotypical 2010 reads. So if that's something that's going to annoy you, this might be something to pass up. I think it was a product of its time, but if that's not something that's going to bother you, then I would highly recommend adding this to your TBR. I know it's been out for a while, but really, really good. If you want a quick, fast read, even though they're quite chunky, they're quite thick books, but they really, you fly through them. That is the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. After that, I read 2 books for a video, so I won't go into too much. If you want, I will go ahead and link my video down in the description bar, but I have 2 books that I picked up for a video where my cats picked my reads. So what I did was I found 3 books each of my TBR that felt like it would be something that one of my cats would read if they were literate, and then read those and did a deep dive review essay. So the first book here was one of Miso's picks, and that's Human Acts by Hong Kong. And then the second one that I did was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and this was Dorito's pick. If you are interested in kind of a deep dive of them, go ahead and watch my video. I will say I really, really liked Human Acts. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was really heavy, really well done. In Project Hail Mary, when I finished it, I thought that it was kind of just slightly better than okay. I thought it was fine. I didn't really understand what all the hype was. I think it's kind of your stereotypical space romp. Yes, it was funny, but some of the jokes didn't quite land for me. And I thought it was just a little bit more than okay. But as I've been kind of marinating on it, I have found myself kind of thinking back to it more and more this month. And so kind of with that distance, I think I liked it more than I initially thought I did at the end of that video. So that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir and Human Acts by Hong Kong. The next group of books that I read is another trilogy. I have the Ninth Reign trilogy by Jen Williams. I thought this series was phenomenal. I have heard little bits about this online. I know that there's a creator named Elliot Books who absolutely loves this series. We either have the exact same taste or the exact opposite. Every video that I've watched of theirs that I've also read the book, it is either we are exactly on the same page or we have exact opposite feelings about some of these books. So wanted to go ahead and read this one for myself and see if this was one of those ones that I agreed with them or had a different opinion. And this is one of those that I was really, really glad I loved this book series. So I will go ahead and read the summary of just the first one so you can see if this sounds like something that you're interested in, and then I'll give a brief overview of the whole thing, spoiler free as much as possible. The city of Abora once glittered with gold. Now its streets are stalked by wolves. Tourmalin the Oathless has no taste for waiting to die while the realm of his ancestors falls to pieces. Talk about a guilt trip. When an eccentric explorer, Lady Vincenza Vintage de Grazon, offers him employment, he sees a way out. Even when they are joined by a fugitive witch with a tendency to set things on fire, the prospect of facing down monsters and retrieving artifacts is preferable to the abomination left behind. But not everyone is willing to let the empire collapse, and the adventurers are soon drawn into a tangled conspiracy of magic and war. The Juralia are coming, and the Ninth Reign must fall. In the first and electrifying new trilogy from the acclaimed author of the Copper Cat series. I'm going to give this trilogy 7 animal companions. In this trilogy here, we are in a fantasy world, and this fantasy world has people who are pretty much normal humans. We have people who are witches, and these witches are kind of jailed and mistreated, and then you've got the witch's mortal enemy, which are these Eboran, almost like elf-like characters. They live a really, really long time, and these Eborans live near and worship this tree, and drinking the sap of the tree is what gives them an unnaturally long life. And there is kind of this cycle that happens of this realm being invaded by an alien species. Each of the invasions is called a reign. And so in the past, there was the 8th reign. And after the 8th reign, the tree that the Aborans drink from and gather their strength from mysteriously gets sick. The sap is no longer there. And so this ancient race of peoples is slowly dying. They are turning to drinking blood in order to kind of grant them some of their healing and some of their long life that they've had in the past. But this blood is not as good at sustaining them as the tree's sap is. And so it also kind of makes them othered. If they drink too much blood, they can get sick and die this gruesome death. And now we have these Aborans who are kind of outcast a little bit. They're seen as odd. And so we are starting our story at the precipice of what looks like it might be a 9th reign. There are these premonitions, there are these dreams that this alien species might be coming again. And so we are following this cast of characters as they are dealing with the potential resurgence of this alien invasion coming to this realm. Are the aliens coming? Are they already here? How can we fight them when after the last one, it was so long ago, there was this big disaster? Very, very, very good. This is great if you are interested in a large cast of characters, kind of this sort of found family. You are in their various points of view. Before most of the chapters, we get these journal entries from Lady Vincenza's writing. She is a scholar. She's a really good collector. And so there's really interesting world building happening with just kind of snippets of what's happening in the world from her journals. And it's really, really well done. We've got animal companions that come through more at the end of the first book. They're much more prominent in the second and the third. We've got these griffins, dragons, big tigers with wings. Really, really cool. Definitely would recommend if you're interested in kind of that like bonding with flying animal companions as well. I will say the first book is really good. The second book kind of took a dip for me. And then the first, I think, quarter of the third book, it was still sitting at the slump that the second book was, in my opinion. And so I was really worried going into the third book. I was like, I really, really liked the first one. The second one was a bit of a letdown. It was still pretty good. But then the third one, it started off and it seemed like it was going to be kind of as mopey as the second one was. And then the third book picked up. The ending of the third book blew me away. Absolutely loved it. So highly, highly recommend, even if you don't like the second book as much. It's still good, but it's just not as good as the first one, in my opinion. The third book really turns it around. I will say this book series isn't doing anything super new, super groundbreaking, but what Jen Williams does really, really well. The next book I picked up was The Lord of Light. I also have a deep dive video on my channel for that one. This was part of a series that I'm going to do where I review a book by rolling some dice, and so have to pick up a book that fits the categories that were randomly selected by my dice roll. So I had The Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny. If you're interested in kind of my complete thoughts, the strengths, the weaknesses of that, go ahead and check out that video. I'll go ahead and make sure it's linked in the description here. But let me just give you a really, really brief summary of the back of the book in case this is something that you are interested in. I just have this pulled up from the Goodreads summary since I no longer have my copy. It is back at the library. Earth is long since dead. On a colony planet, a band of men has gained control of technology, made themselves immortal, and now rule their world as gods of the Hindu pantheon. Only one dares oppose them. He who was once Siddhartha is now Mahat Samatman. Binder of Demons, Lord of Light. So that is the end of the description there on Goodreads. It's a very, very small. Sorry about messing up with his name there. He goes by Sam, so I don't have to read the whole name very often when you're reading the book. But yeah, that book, I thought it was pretty middle of the road. I give that one 3 reincarnation cycle living as a chimpanzee. I think that it was really good if you are interested in some of the psychedelic sci-fi, if you are really interested in discussions about religion and how religion can be used to control groups of people. If you have an interest in Eastern religion, 10 out of 10. If you are somebody who likes hearing the White Lotus Buddhism, definitely pick that one up. But I thought it was definitely a difficult read. There are a lot of pieces and you don't get all the information until pretty much the last chapter. So it's one of those books that you read it once and you should probably try to read it again. So if that is something you're interested in, if you're really interested in sci-fi and you've read a lot of sci-fi and you like some of that strange psychedelic sci-fi, you might be absolutely the target audience for this book. But if you are a casual science fiction enjoyer, I would work your way up until you've read that one. Read some of the other more commonly recommended science fiction until you know that you like the genre, and then I say go for it. Definitely try it out, but just know that it might not be for everyone and it might be a bit of an acquired taste. After I read Lord of Light, the next book that I picked up was a reread of Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, so that way I could do my plot summary deep dive breakdown video that at the time of posting this one, that one will be live, so I'll make sure that that's linked for you. This book is absolutely a classic for a reason. I give this book an eternity on the moors. I absolutely loved this book. I loved it when I was a kid. I read this first when I was in 10th grade. I was probably like 16 years old at the time. Went absolutely feral for it. And so this book has a very, very deep-seated place in my heart. I think that even though reading it as an adult, I can see that it is definitely toxic, definitely not something you want to emulate, super dramatic, absolutely feels like teenagers being teenagers to the nth degree, but I loved it. So this book will always carry a special place in my heart. Go pick it up if you are interested in watching the movie, because the movie is going to be completely different from the book. And if you don't have the time to sit down and read this book, then highly would recommend my video. I'm a little bit biased, but go ahead and watch that for kind of a breakdown of exactly what happens. Like, we are two people sitting down over coffee, dumbing it down, watering it down. The prose in this is absolutely fantastic. So genuinely, even just for getting a taste of just beautiful writing, pick this book up. I definitely did not preserve the beautiful writing in my Yap session breakdown, but absolutely beautiful. All the Bronte sisters, just they're fantastic at weaving just this pretty beautiful story. The descriptions are fantastic. Definitely would recommend. The next book that I picked up was Anatomy of an Alibi. I don't have my copy with me, but let me go ahead and read the summary here. 2 women, 1 dead husband, and only 1 alibi. Everyone at Chantilly's bar noticed out-of-towner Camille Bayliss. Red lips, designer heels, sipping a Negroni. But that woman wasn't Camille Bayliss. It was Aubrey Price. Camille Bayliss appears to have the picture-perfect life. She's married to a hotshot lawyer, Ben, and is the daughter of a wealthy Louisiana family. Only nothing is as it seems. Camille believes Ben has been hiding dirty secrets for years, but she can't find proof because he tracks her every move. Aubrey Price has been haunted by a terrible night that changed her life a decade ago, and she's convinced Benjamin Bayliss knows something about it. Living in a house full of criminals, Aubrey understands that there's more than one way to get to the truth, and she may have found the best way in. Aubrey and Camille catch a plan. It sounds simple. For 12 hours, Aubrey will take Camille's place. Camille will spy on Ben, and the 2 women will get answers they so desperately seek. Except the next morning, Ben is found murdered. Both women need an airtight alibi, but only one of them has it. And one false step is all it takes for everything to come undone. So I am rating Anatomy of an Alibi 12 reasons why not to move to Louisiana. This book I thought was really, really good. I am very picky when it comes to mysteries. Mysteries tend to fall into 2 categories most often for me. One is I can spot the twist a mile away. It's really obvious. It feels like within the first 30 pages, I know who did it. And then the rest of the book is just me confirming. Or the second one is that the twist is so out of left field that you would never, ever, ever see it coming. And in my opinion, that also kind of ruins the experience when it's almost a bit of cheating on, at least in my opinion, from the author, when there is absolutely no way that anyone would see it coming because the twist is just so batshit. And Anatomy of an Alibi kind of dodged both of those categories for me. I read it. I did not see the twist coming, but I also seemed plausible enough, and there were enough hints that I was actually kind of kicking myself that I didn't see it coming. So for simply that reason, Ashley Elston, kudos to you. I really, really liked it. When I did read it, I didn't notice any plot holes. Maybe if I were to read it again, I would notice some, but I thought that this was really, really good. I have not read her first book, First Lie Wins. I went straight for Anatomy of an Alibi. And I thought it was really good. I thought it was really well done. It felt like Louisiana. I have extended family who lives out there, just on the outskirts of New Orleans, and the book feels sticky, it feels hot, and it was just a good murder mystery romp. If you have the time to pick up, it's about a little over 300 pages, and you want kind of a page turner thriller mystery with lots of points of view, I thought it was really good. So that is Anatomy of an Alibi. The next series that I picked up is part of an extended series. It's a group of connected duologies, and so I picked up the first two, which is about the same couple. It is a romantasy series called The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. I am going to give this book 12 miscommunications out of 10. I am not a fan of the miscommunication trope, even though that usually would be something that would turn me off from this. I genuinely really, really liked our character, Laura. I was rooting for her, and so I was like, yeah, I need to pick up the second book just to see what happens with Laura. She is trained to be an assassin, and she is trained to essentially marry this prince from her rival kingdom and take him down. That is her whole goal. And his whole thing is he is fairly confident that this bride that has been chosen for him is probably going to sabotage him. So he is doing everything that he can to foil her plots, find her out, and make sure that he does under no circumstances fall for this woman. This is a marriage of political alliance, and that's it. And so while on the surface that feels like your stereotypical romantasy, I thought it was great. I would pick this up. I don't know if I will be continuing with the series simply because I know that this is the end of our first two characters' stories, and then we branch off from there. So since this is kind of a natural conclusion, I'll see. I don't know if it was compelling enough for me to pick up a 6-book plus series, especially if it does end up being kind of the same stereotypical romantasy tropes over and over again. But here is the back of the book from just the first one, so that way I don't get into too many spoilers for the second. A warrior princess trained in isolation. Lara is driven by two certainties. The first is that the king of Aran of the Bridge Kingdom is her enemy, and that the second is that she'll be the one to bring him to his knees. The only route through a storm-ravaged world, the Bridge Kingdom of Ithacana, enriches itself and deprives its rivals, including Laura's homeland. So when she is sent there as a bride under the guise of peace, Laura is prepared to do whatever it takes to fracture its impenetrable defenses and the defenses of its king. Yet, as she infiltrates her new home and gains deeper understanding of the war to possess the bridge, Laura begins to question whether she's the hero or the villain. As her feelings for her husband transform from frosty hostility to fierce passion, Lara must choose which kingdom she'll save and which she'll destroy. If you are interested in a duology, romantasy, definitely pick this up. I will say that some of the names, it does, at least with the kingdoms, it does fall into kind of what you would imagine, where it's like, hey, we have a maritime society. What do you think a random maritime society kingdom would be named? And that's what it is. We got like Ithacana, Mauritania, all of these crazy names where it's like, all right, how many times can we change up either a Greek name or the word for the ocean and add a bunch of extra vowels to it. So there is that, but I think it's a good time. If you are interested in kind of a read, it felt like summer reading this. So if you're interested in kind of a maritime society, we've got ship battles, jungle where everything is trying to kill you, muggy snakes. That is the Bridge Kingdom. I thought it was a good time. So we definitely aren't in a slightly different angle or a slightly different time because I super didn't run out of storage on my phone and lose about half of my video. Definitely didn't happen. So this is take 2 or not. This is definitely take 1. So the next book that I read in January is The Graceless Heart by Isabel Ibanez. This is her debut adult fantasy novel. She has written a couple YA books that are pretty popular that I have not read. I picked this book up because it absolutely sounded like something I would love. A fantasy romance set in alternate reality Florence with magic and the Medicis. That sounded like something that I would absolutely eat up. And unfortunately, I am reading the 3 too many historical anachronisms. It didn't quite do it for me. I can tell that there were a lot of research to historical events and to try to take some of these historical events and turn them into this fantasy alternate reality Florence. For me, though, it was a little bit too goofy without fully leaning into the campiness of it. I think that if, at least personally, if Isabel had leaned in more to kind of the goofiness aspect of it, and kind of this alternate history, while being a romantasy, I think it would have been a lot stronger for me. There were too many cameos of like these Leonardo da Vinci. We've got the Medicis. We've got the assassination attempt on the brothers. All of these historical events that like actually were happening in Florence that are kind of the backdrop of or side plots in this story. And so it could have been really, really goofy with this romantasy, and it didn't lean into it enough for me. And the more that I think about it, the more I think that there were some missed opportunities to really lean in and have fun with this story. And I almost think that she played it too straight. Love is the most dangerous magic. As a sculptress, Ravenna Maffei has always shaped beauty from stone, but she has a terrible secret. Desperate to save her brother, she enters a competition hosted by Florence's most feared immortal family, revealing a dark power in a city where magic is forbidden. Now a captive in a cutthroat city, Ravenna is forced into a dangerous task where failure means certain death at the hands of Saturnino de Lune, the immortal family's mesmerizing but merciless heir. But as he draws her closer, Ravenna realizes the true threat lies beyond Florence's walls. The Pope's war against magic is closing in, and Ravenna is no longer just a prisoner, but a prize to be claimed. As trusting the wrong person becomes lethal, Ravenna must survive the treacherous line between the Pope's obsession and a seductive immortal who may be the end of her, or surrender her power to a city on the brink of war. So, like I said, this story is taking place in a alternate reality Florence where magic is very much commonplace, but magic is forbidden. We are also following the Pope as he is kind of on his quest to outlaw magic, but he may or may not be using magic of his own. And so we've got kind of the real history of like the Medici family, their patronage of the arts, the power and influence that the Medicis had in Florence, and how there were attempts by the papal see in Rome to kind of counterbalance this influence and kind of take out this family who were kind of a threat to their power. And so we're set in this really dramatic, juicy, interesting time in Italian history. I love Italian history. I most recently went to Florence, was my most recent trip abroad. About a year ago now, I took my husband. I have been couple times. I was fortunate enough to have grown up in Europe for some of my life. And so a lot of the places referenced in this book, just in Tuscany, in Florence, in Rome, are places that are very near and dear to my heart, places that I've visited and loved as a child, or have been fortunate enough to visit again as an adult. And so kind of still living off the high of my Florence trip about a year ago, I picked this book up thinking that it would be absolutely fantastic. We've got Florence, we've got the juicy Medici history. That all in and of itself could be a drama and a half worth tons of books. And so this book, I just came in having really, really high hopes, and it fell flat for me. So that is A Graceless Heart by Isabel Ibanez. Just if you're someone who knows a lot about art history, Italian history, if you're expecting that mixed with this, it has some of that, but it's kind of goofy, and she is playing it too straight, and I wish she had just leaned into it. You can tell she did her research, but I almost wish she had gone camp with it. I think that there are some really wacky things that happen in this book. There's a wild twist that you would never see coming. If you did see this twist coming, kudos to you. I certainly was completely blindsided by the twist, and the twist was kind of wacky and wild, and I wish that she had kind of leaned in to the camp more. But I wanted to like it more. I was disappointed. I had really high hopes for this going into it. It sounded like a lot of fun, and I think that had she leaned into the goofiness of it more, this could have been fantastic. And maybe it's just me, but I wish that was the direction she took it. She played it too straight. When this absolutely could have been a wild, fun ride if she had just been goofy with it. After that, the next book that I picked up was The Ministry of Time, and I will give The Ministry of Time by Kayleen Bradley 14 chain-smoked cigarettes. This book is set in near future England, and we have a girl who she has grown up, and she is the daughter of a Cambodian refugee, and she is offered this job, or she finds this job that pays her like 3 times her salary, and it's super vague, but she's going to be dealing with expats and refugees in some capacity. And so she ends up getting this job, and turns out that she is going to be a handler for a temporal expat. So what the ministry has done is they have come into this technology that allows them to kind of scoop up someone from the past. And this is kind of the first wave. This is the experiment. And so she is part of this group where there are a couple people who have been rescued, quote unquote, from their time. They were about to die. They all are tangentially related to something big that has happened in the past, but they were about to die right before they were scooped up. And so they wouldn't be missed from that time in the past. This girl, she is the handler of someone who is scooped up from 1800s. He is a naval officer. He is a sailor, and he works with expeditions to the Arctic. And she has always been obsessed with this time in history and obsessed with his expedition. So when he ends up being the person that she is working with for this new position, and all expenses are paid essentially, and she's living in this house with what is essentially her historical hero, she of course finds herself becoming infatuated with this man, and this man is trying to kind of grapple with the fact that his life is completely different. He's now in the future. He is living with this girl who she is biracial, but she's white passing. He's not used to cohabitating with a woman, especially an unmarried woman. He's used to kind of roughing it on the seas. So him grappling with the fact that he's now in the future, his whole world is upside down. Everyone he's ever known is dead, long dead. I thought this book is really well done. Let me go ahead and give you a brief summary before I forget. So this is just the back of the book here. In the near future, a civil servant begins work on a highly confidential project. A government ministry is gathering expats from across history to discover whether time travel is feasible for the human body, but also for the fabric of space-time. She will act as a bridge, living with, assisting, and monitoring with an expat known as 1847, or Commander Graham Gore, who, as far as history is concerned, died on Sir John Franklin's doomed 1845 expedition to the Arctic. But as the bridge acquaints Gore with modern concepts such as washing machines, Spotify, and the collapse of the British Empire, she finds herself falling fervently in love, with consequences that she never could have imagined. So this book tackles, like I've kind of alluded to, this book tackles life kind of as a refugee, tackles issues like race, gender, sexuality, what it means to be white passing, straight passing, how maybe things have evolved since the 1800s, but where society is still falling short. I'm not the expert to talk about this. I will leave that to people who are experts to talking about some of the topics in this book to kind of judge whether or not this is done accurately or accurately portrays some of those sentiments, because that is a very, very big theme in this book. One thing that I can speak to that Bradley does really, really well is she has a knack for kind of describing these strange visceral feelings. She absolutely nails it. There is one that I can think of specifically where the female main character is having this thought about the male main character, and she doesn't want to say it out loud. She feels a little self-conscious, and so she kind of keeps her thoughts to herself. And in kind of the awkward silence that passes, he goes and he says the exact same thought that she was thinking. And Kayleen goes and says that it was like when you are chewing something and it's meant to be soft and suddenly your teeth hits bone, and just that visceral reaction of the surprise. And honestly, that's exactly what it feels like when you can't put something into words, you're self-conscious about it, and then someone puts it into words for you. And so this book is chock full of descriptions like that, where these feelings that everyone's kind of these universal feelings that everyone's felt, and then she goes and she writes it in a way that I never would have thought about it like that. But absolutely, there's no other way to describe it. Now that I'm seeing it written on the page, that's the only way to describe something like that. This book, it gets a lot of hype. I will say that, at least for me personally, I'm not going to say that this book was life-changing. Maybe if I was someone who is dealing with some of the things that are tackled in this book, I could imagine that maybe that same visceral reaction to seeing something written on the page might hit for someone who, for an example, is white passing biracial. So though I personally can't relate to that, I could imagine that if that is something that is describing your experience, it might hit even harder reading some of those life experiences put to the page. So for me, I won't say that this book was life-changing, but honestly, I don't know if I was meant to be the person that this book is life-changing for. That is The Ministry of Time. The next book that I picked up is part of a trilogy, but I, spoiler alert, am stopping after this first one. This is a book that I have heard many, many things about. That is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. I have heard this book described as a fairy tale, folklore, old-timey Russia. You are cold, it's winter, these spirits are knocking at your door, and kind of the tension between folklore and Christianity in Russia. And absolutely, that is what this book is. This book is beautiful. It is written with really, really interesting narration. It is told in third person omniscient, so you are hopping in and out of anything that could be happening. You are in the heads of multiple characters, but you're all still kept at arm's length a little bit. And it really adds this folkloric folktale vibe. This feels like the type of story that you don't read a lot of nowadays, where it feels like the story that you're told by the fire. It's spooky, it's cold, people are going hungry. There are elements of like it's a little bit scary. There are really dark elements to this book. Honestly, this is something I know it's like dead of winter. This is something I would recommend for like that November. You just came off of Halloween and it's still cold outside. One thing that I was not prepared for, though, is it's a subplot, but there is a subplot that I am not prepared for. So I'm going to go ahead and warn you about this subplot. I rated this book series one wild Lolita subplot. Like I said, it's dealing with kind of this balancing act between Christianity and folklore and folk tales and spirits in Russia. But what I was not prepared for is we are in this story following a young girl from before she is born, and then her as like a early woman. She's young. What this the main plot, the main conflict is when she is changing from girl to woman, something is going to happen. And so the majority of this book, she is a child. She is described as she's preteen. She is all gangly limbs, big eyes, big mouth, like has not grown into her features, is described as frog-like, that awkward preteen, where you just are all spindly limbs and knobby knees, kind of wild, you're running around in the forest, and that's how she's described. And so it is extremely jarring when a girl who is a preteen is being described that way, and then you are also suddenly in the heads of multiple people, but specifically one character who is absolutely lusting after her and is kind of echoing the Disney movie Hunchback of Notre Dame, where we've got Frollo, who he is lusting after Esmeralda, and he's saying, if I can't have her, if she won't be mine, then she deserves hellfire. That is the same kind of thing that's happening here, where he is lusting after and sexualizing this girl, this preteen girl, and she is a child. And it's not just one character. There's multiple characters. There's a plot line where she's still young. She's still probably too young to be married off. And when I say too young to be married off, her older sister is 14 when her older sister gets married. And her older sister, 14, is seen as a normal age to be married. Her older sister gets married when she's 14. Her dad thinks that's totally fine. Her dad takes a stepmom who is essentially like 16, married to a 45-year-old, and that's read as normal. That's read as fine. And even in a world where that is normal and fine, people think it's weird or it's too soon for this girl to be married off, but her dad's going to do it anyway. And these men are looking at her, and these men are sexualizing her and talking about how she hasn't grown into her features, so she's not quite pretty yet, but there's something about her that's captivating and that they're entranced by. And I just thought it was icky. It just was something that was jarring, and it's a subplot, but for me, it kind of ruined it, and I just got a little queasy reading some of those. I was not expecting kind of a Lolita-esque subplot, so wanted to warn you on that one. All that aside, this is a very good book. It is written beautifully. It's written like a folktale. All of the things that I have heard about this book, about how it's this grand sweeping Russian tale. You have folklore, you've got Christianity, you've got this balance between the two. It's written very well. The subplot ruined it for me. So if that's something that you can stomach, absolutely, there is a reason people talk about this book series, and maybe that won't be an issue in books 2 and 3 because she'll be older, but the fact that it was so prominent in this book that I finished it. It was a good enough book to want to finish it, but I do not think I will be continuing with this series anytime soon. I need to kind of take a breather before coming back to something like that. My next 2 books, I went to this event, this local authors event in the Valley. And so I was invited to this by a friend of mine who she was volunteering at this event, and she is very plugged into kind of the local indie author scene here in Arizona. And so she had a lot of friends who were attending this event. When I heard about this, I was like, oh my goodness, yes, I absolutely want to come to this. So I showed up and picked up 2 books while I was there. So the first one that I picked up by local Southwest author here is Vermilion H. Bain's The Academy of the Dead. As far as I'm aware, this is not necessarily one of my friend's friends, but wanted to kind of throw that one out there. Both these next 2 books are indie published, indie authors. I want to just shout out to that. if these sound like things that you were interested in, would highly, highly, highly recommend picking this up, just simply to support a local, if you're local to the area, but to support an indie author. So there is that disclaimer there. This is The Academy of the Dead. I really, really liked this book. I am going to rate this book 3 swords that turn into snakes. This book was absolutely a great fun time. This book is your stereotypical enemies to lovers, rivals, dark academia, romantasy book. However, when I was reading this, I had a blast. Vermilion is going through and writing this, and it seems like she's kind of in on the joke. There are a lot of tropey things happening here, and it seems like somebody who has read a lot of Rivals to Lovers, Dark Academia, and was like, let me try my hand on it. Let me make some of the jokes. Let me lean hard into the camp of it. Let me really, really dive into some of the tropiness and the kind of recycled plots of a lot of these romantasy stories, and have fun with it and not take ourselves too seriously. And I really, really liked this. This is the second in kind of 2 standalone stories here. I might go in. She has another one called The Fae Hotel. I might go and pick that book up too, just because I had so much fun with this one. I would read the blurb on the back of the book here, except for it's just, my love is your burden to bear. Like, we are getting into the camp of some of these romantasy stories, and I love when someone's in on the joke and is kind of going for it too. And so this story is about our female main character and her academic rival. Prior to the story, she was valedictorian of this necromancer academy. She is the first generation of necromancers in a family of green witches, and so she is really being thrust into this world of necromancy unprepared. She does not know a lot of the rules. She hasn't had everything handed to her, and she works her ass off and becomes valedictorian by the skin of her teeth. And she's at this like kind of tension with the salutatorian, and he is a necromancer from a long line of very famous necromancers. He has everything handed to him on a silver platter. They were one-time friends, turned enemies, turned academic rivals. And so she, in trying to kind of best him and learn all that she can, she falls victim to academic burnout. And so after she graduates top of her class, she is kind of tapped as this almost like ready to be the next big name in academics when it comes to necromancy. She fades into obscurity. She runs away from all of it. She's completely burned out. And so she's been living on this with her family, running this inn in the middle of nowhere, Washington, surrounded by green witches, not leaning into any of her necromancy powers at all. And the main male character, he comes across this ancient page that needs translating from the Book of the Dead. It's very clear that this page has curses upon it. It's written in a language that nobody can understand. And he realizes the only person who could be better at translating it and solving it and figuring out what's going on with it would be his academic rival who has faded into obscurity. And so he is going to do whatever it takes to bring her back into this world of academics, getting her grants, getting her research, setting her up so that way he is working on it with her. This book absolutely is like a piece of me, absolutely is a fantasy. Are you kidding? Like a girl who is burned out by academia and is handed kind of this dream research opportunity on a silver platter, dealing with dead languages, dealing with translation, ancient texts. Like, are you kidding me? That sounds like a dream. Please, if anyone is listening, come. I too would like a dream research grant, trying to solve some niche topic of academia that nobody really cares about anymore, or dealing with translation. That would be fantastic. This book is definitely a romantasy. It's definitely campy. It leans into it though. He professes his love for her on like page 30. This book is, though it's not a slow burn, I wish that the pacing could have been a bit better. It is absolutely ridiculous, and I loved every single minute of it. It's wild that the author was able to make me fall in love with a character that looks like this. Let that sink in there. We got an Ozzy Osbourne looking long-haired librarian type. Yeah, I thought it was great. This particular edition has a lot of really beautiful artwork as well. But she has multiple editions that you can go buy if you're interested in kind of a goofy romantasy from a local Southwest artist. That is Vermilion H. Baines, Academy of the Dead. The next book that I picked up at this event, I will have a disclaimer. This is a friend of my friend. So this is one of the authors that my friend was helping with some of their booth, with some of their sales. So I picked this book up. This is book 1 of 2, currently out, called Fate's Tether by Jade Neoma. I believe that's how you pronounce their pen name here. Let me go ahead and read the back of the book. For a rating, I give this book 2 winged men. This book says, will Cosima seize her chance at untangling her destiny? It has been nearly 50 years since Queen Cosima of Felion became a captive in her own kingdom. The area of Pelagio, where the 3 sky-bound islands sit miles above the surface of planet Halos. With powers of fate and time manipulation, she seeks one end goal: to free herself and her kingdom from its toxic captor, her husband. Aurelio's manipulative control over her and her magic leaves lasting impressions on their world and Cosima's sanity. The king's destructive ways have tormented her for decades, leaving her a shell of who she once was. The Ambrosi, immortal beings, and Rainy, powerful winged guardians, exist to care for the world and all of its inhabitants, but their protection falters beneath Aurelio's rule, leaving clans of vampires, shifters, and witches to band together and protect their planet alone. But the threat to their world becomes more than Cosima can ignore, and with a leap of faith, she embarks on a life-changing journey toward freedom. With angels, immortals, mysterious crystals, and otherworldly beasts, Fate's Tether follows Cosima's fight for redemption, reclamation of her power, and revenge. She pushes herself to new heights and new lows in this beautiful tale of survivalship and growth. One early review calls Fate's Tether an incredible story whose heart, strength, and empowerment will leave you breathless. One of the most beautiful stories I've read in a very long time. Like the back of the book says, we're following Cosima, and she is this one-time queen. She had met Aurelio, fell in love with Aurelio, married him, and then quickly after marrying him and he secures his place as king, he overtakes the throne. She is essentially now this figurehead, and she is left a shell of who she once was due to his repeated assaults on her. There's a lot of domestic violence, very, very heavy mentions of domestic violence in this story. And he drugs her to use her power against her will. She has the ability to slip into kind of this third realm, this other realm, and she can manipulate time, either by going into the past and changing the past, or occasionally she's able to change the future, but the future is harder for her to manipulate. When she goes in to manipulate the past or the future, it has this ripple effect and how that affects the present. And so he uses her power against her will for his own nefarious purposes, and it's her surviving him and eventually fighting back and trying to take back her kingdom after her kingdom is fallen into disarray for the various groups of people living in this kingdom. I will say the first probably quarter of this book is almost entirely very, very heavy world building. Jade Neoma built this very large, expansive world that eventually pays off. It does play into the rest of the story, but there are parts of it where there's quite a bit of knowledge in the beginning. And then the other part of the first quarter of the book is very, very heavy domestic abuse, domestic violence happening. It's painting Aurelio and Cosima and really setting the stage for just how awful of a life she has. And so It is done with care. In the author's note in the beginning, Jade Neoma discusses their own experience with domestic violence. It's not done gratuitously, but it is very, very difficult to read. It's very, very heavy. The author discusses about that that they draw from their own experience. Obviously, this is a fantasy world. Obviously, it's not the same, but that the author, it is something that's very close to them. And proceeds of this book, again, this is a local author, proceeds of this book go to a local Arizona LLC that is trying to support survivors and victims of domestic violence, help get them out of a serious situation. And so simply for that fact alone, if that is something that you feel compelled to want to purchase this book or donate to that cause, I think it's fantastic that the author is discussing some of those topics here. And I think it's wonderful that Jade has kind of gone through this and is turning this into art and is kind of putting words to this experience that is not really talked about, or that is kind of dealt with behind closed doors. However, that first quarter is very, very heavy because it's heavy world building and it's domestic violence. And so it's not gratuitous. It adds to the story, both the heavy world building and the domestic violence, but just know going into it that first quarter is rough. It's the first quarter is not very fun to read. It gets better, it gets fun. But that first quarter is rough. So that is Fate's Tether by Jade Neoma. And then the very last series that I read is an incomplete series. There are 2 novels and a novella out. I read the 2 novels in preparation for the 3rd book that is coming out in February. Since the 3rd book's coming out, I was like, yeah, this is a good time to read this book. I've heard tell of it. It is another romantasy series. It is the Ashen series. The first book is The Road of Bones. This is a Viking-inspired romantasy here, and it is very much a found family. We have a large cast of characters. I liked the series. I liked the first book more than I liked the second book. I will say that. So I'm going to rate this first book 5 vampire deers. This book series is following this girl named Scylla, and growing up, she always thought that the man that she's living with is her father, and every so often she and her father have to move around, and it's kind of, you don't really know why they are on the run, but they're hiding from something. They put temporary roots down, and then every once in a while they have to move. Our main character, Scylla, is living in a world where the king is new to the throne, and the king is hunting down anyone with magic and putting them to death. It's very gory. He's stoning them. There's blood eagles, like the kind of, this is like your Norse inspired. If you've seen Midsummer, it's like romantasy Midsummer, where it's these torture that's happening for these people who have magic. And so one day, after witnessing one of the many executions of people who are even just suspected of having magic, there's no proof that's needed. Her father turns to her and says, we need to go to the safe house, and so we have to take the Road of Bones to get there. And almost immediately upon hearing this, the queen's soldiers come. They end up attacking and killing the man who she thought was her father, and she finds out at kind of his last moments that it's not her dad. And so now she is trying to enact his final wish of getting her to the safe house where she has to travel on this notorious Road of Bones. While she's doing that, she is trying to hide from the queen's soldiers who are after her. And she doesn't really know why they're after her as well. She stows away on this wagon that belongs to this kind of ragtag group of sellsword mercenaries. When they discover her, it's very quickly. She says that she will work for them. She'll cook, she'll clean, she'll do what they need to do while living on the road. if they escort her safely to the part where they're going to part ways. They are on a mission from the king, actually, to investigate this creature that has been killing people in this town. It's this mist creature that like has a heartbeat. And so they are tasked with kind of going and dispatching this creature and saving the town. And so she is going to be with them for part of the way until the road diverges, and then she will continue alone to the safe house. It is her dealing with this kind of ragtag group of mercenaries. In a romantasy, they are a lot of them. It's always the hottest man you've ever seen, of course, is the love interest. And here we got two hottest men you've ever seen. And I was like, did I just stumble into a why choose romance? Don't want to yuck your yum if that's you. I personally do not like why choose romances. That's not something that I want to read very often. And so it was not a why choose. I do wish the two men in this group, it's more than just the men. There's quite a few there, but I do wish that some of the characters were a bit more distinguishable from one another. Physically, they look different, but like, they're pretty much the same character. It's this grumpy man who, for one reason or another, is keeping her at an arm's length. We've got one who's very disciplined, very untrusting. And then we've got the other who, though he looks very physically different from that character, to keep people at arm's length, he will sleep with a bunch of women, but it's all surface level. And so we've got these two kind of characters, and our main female character, Scylla, as she's navigating these two brooding boys, but also everyone else in the camp. I wish that there was a little bit more of a difference between the two, especially as it goes on. I feel like there are some big distinct differences that happen towards the end of the first book, but some of the things that they say, it could have been either one of them. If you asked me to blindfold like who it was that said this thing or did this thing, I wouldn't be able to tell you if there wasn't a physical description. So they're physically described. They look very different. One's this blonde-haired, blue-eyed Viking man, and the other one is this dark-skinned, tattooed warrior. And so looks-wise, they're very different. But of course, they're both just hot men. And they both are essentially interchangeable, in my opinion, when I was reading it. But the main draw that kept me hooked in this first book was this woman, warrior woman who's part of this ragtag group named Hecla Ribbreaker. I would die for Hecla. I love Hecla. Hecla is this warrior woman. She's kind of this badass Brienne of Tarth-esque, like strong of stature, described as like this mountain woman, who she has one arm. And the reason that she has one arm is because she had an abusive husband who ended up cutting her arm off, and leaving her in the woods for dead. And she pulls herself by her bootstraps. She becomes this strong physical fighter in the hopes that she would one day, and she succeeded, she would one day pay him back and knock on his door and kill him, and essentially like take her revenge on everything that he did to her while they were together. And now that she has kind of accomplished this, she is part of this group of mercenaries who are kind of dispatching these creatures, and she's using her physical strength that way. And Hecla really takes our main character, Scylla, under her wing. She becomes kind of this like older sister figure to her. And I really, really liked that. And a lot of these stories, it's always the hot boy who teaches the woman how to fight. So I really, really liked that we have this addition of this character, who is just the best character in the entire novel. Love her. But on top of her being this strong, badass warrior woman, she also likes Scylla's company because she wants to have another girl around who wants to put on pretty dresses and talk about boys and put flowers in their hair. And so I really, really just liked her as this like fully fleshed character. I know she's a side character, but she's just this fully fleshed person who is like, yes, she's this strong, warrior badass, but also she likes pretty dresses, and she might be physically imposing, but she wants to braid flowers in her hair, and she just wants to be a girl. And so I really, really liked Hecla. There is a shocking lack of Hecla content in the second book. I will still read the third book. I know that the third book's already written. It's going to be published in a few weeks, but Demi Winters, I need more Hecla in the third book, please and thank you. She is the reason that I continued the story, and there was not enough of her in the second book, so please give me more Hecla in the third book. Thank you. If you are kind of burnt out of your stereotypical romantasy content, or if that's not something that you like to read, maybe I wouldn't recommend picking up that book. But if you are interested in kind of Norse folklore, there's a little bit of Russian actually in the second book, but if you're interested in like Vikings, kind of these creepy-esque creatures, this whole host of monsters, kind of in the dark cold, there's definitely a lot of that, so you will be well fed with that. But if you are kind of burnt out of your stereotypical romantasy plot lines, then maybe this won't be the book series for you. But that is Demi Winter's The Road of Bones, the Ashen series, books 1 and 2. All right, and we have come to the end of all of the books that I read in January. January was a very, very busy, chaotic month. And so, of course, I went ahead and escaped the best way I know how, which is in reading way too many books. So I hope that you had a good January. I hope that you had a more restful, relaxing time than me, and that maybe you didn't try to escape into a bunch of different books this January. But if you did, please let me know any books that you'd recommend, or let me know if you are going to be picking up any of these titles. And yeah, thank you so much for spending too much time with me yet again. So really appreciate you and hope that it's a good one.